And you've just heard The Urge to Pray, which is taken from the album After the Fog Air by Becci Wallace and Steg G. And I'm delighted to be joined by Becky now. Hello.
Hello, how are you? Lovely to see you, Ali, as
And
always.
great to see you as well. And before we talk, going deep about the album, let's just talk a little bit about that song, The Urge to Pray, because it was one track which kind of jumped out at me when I was listening to the album for the first time.
Yeah, actually, it used to be entitled Believe, but I did change the title to kind of maybe give it more of an understanding of its meaning. But when I first wrote it, I think I wanted to sound like a love affair, right? Like this possible, like when we're close, it's amazing, but we need to not be close kind of thing. But it's actually a song I wrote about the church. Now, hear me out.
Hmm.
Uh, I grew up in the church. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I've got a kind of love-hate relationship with the concept of faith and the concept of belief. And like, I think like over time I've become quite agnostic, and that's cool. But I still have this like almost like a kind of ball and chain that kind of anchors me to a lot of the early teachings of my life, and it can be really disruptive. So that's kind of, I know the song's quite kind of happy-go-lucky hip hop sounding, but that's kind of what it's about. So it's about that sense of trying to push past some of those old habits that kind of keep me in guilt mode or in kind of like needing to do better or not being truly happy kind of mode, which is kind of what a lot of the album's about, to be honest.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the themes that are kind of maybe running through it as well. But first of all, I want to know about After the Fog Air, the title, where that comes from.
I felt so again, I felt like with this album, I've released two albums before this.
Hmm.
One was part of a master's project when I was a younger kind of hedonistic student, and it was about travel and about this love affair with Glasgow and the chaos and all that. And it was very heartfelt and deep. And then the next one was after I had my kids, that was Present Tense, which was a real kind of electronic sounding, like dark album all about like postnatal depression and like lockdown and
Mm.
isolation and all that stuff. So when I started this album, which I started writing maybe 2021, 22, I was in a place where I felt like I had, it was a kind of calm after the storm feeling.
Right.
And actually when I started out, I was like, I really want to write a pop, easy listening album that kind of focuses out the way and says to people, there's always a better day ahead kind of thing. So weirdly, it kind of started as a after you can't see, once again, the air will come and you will see. That's after the fog. So it just always stuck in my head. But weirdly, as I moved through the album, the title became kind of more about the kind of working that I was doing myself through my own journey, which has been hectic and chaotic and obviously changing. So I learned quite quickly not to like sit on my laurels in 2021 and be like, I've got this, because by 2022 I was like, I don't know what I'm doing again. Um, as life, as we
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
So I guess the fog is that kind of the fog of surety, but also the fog of sadness or pain or whatever, and that there's always another day after it. That's it,
Yeah,
really.
and kind of breaking through to kind of breathe again, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
And the album is, as we said, it's going under the title Becci Wallace and Steg G. So how, instead of just a Becci Wallace solo album, so how did you come to work together and how did it work?
That's a great question. So, I mean, obviously, Steg G is a legend, and I'm very humbled and happy to have known him for a long time. And, you know, he played my first song on CamGlen Radio when I was like 15. So we go back a long way, you know. Um, but basically, you'll hear a lot of me in the album. You can hear it's a kind of songwriter's album. There's a lot of songwriter songs in there, but you'll hear that kind of Steg G kind of hip hop pop influence.
Yeah.
So the reason I thought it was best to entitle it as having been written by both of us was that we met in Carlton Studios a few times when we were just kind of talking about doing a collab. And Stig brought this amazing track, which is on the album. It's a song called You Give Me More. And I just loved the process of writing with Stig. We couldn't be more opposite people. Like in terms, I mean, I am an arty farty artist, right? And he is a very matter of fact, get the job done, brilliant practitioner, excellent sound crafter, right? So between the two of us, we have, you know, a lot of skills. Combining that together, we created kind of something with this first track that he brought me. that was just dead different from anything else we had both done. And straight
Mhm.
away, I was like, do you know what? Let's roll the dice and we'll just work on this together. So I had a lot of songs, and obviously, like, it was always writing. But I would bring them to Steg and we would basically deconstruct them and then start again in the studio building them together. So it became a really collaborative process, and it just felt like we had kind of equal stakes in the end result. So while I wrote a lot of the songs, Steg's production has been integral to the work. Yeah.
Because I don't know what I expected with his production, but I've heard a lot of his other stuff, and this does seem to have more of a kind of pop sensibility to it.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I think it was just a case of just accepting that as what it was, you know. I came to Steg with quite a clear brief at the time. I had this idea that my album, after two arduous, soul-searching kind of epics, should be a self-help book, a throwaway self-help book, right? Like if it was a book, it would be on the shelves in Waterstones for 2.99 saying 5 tips for a better life, or 12 tips because it's an album, right? So when I first started, I really thought that's what we were going to make, and it was just going to be sharp pop. We will go for a different market. We'll just enjoy being songwriters. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but life becomes what it is, so it's got a lot more layers than that. But we tried to retain that initial sound and idea. Yeah, just for fun, you know. The beauty of being a songwriter is that, or this kind of songwriter, is that the next album could be completely different. Who knows?
And so you had kind of clear roles in the, was it recorded in a studio? Was it done partly?
Went up to Stegs because I mean we started kind of just at the end of lockdown against 2021, 22. So I just got to Stegs every couple of weeks with some songs. I probably wrote about 30 songs for this. The final cut had 15, some of them came off. So me and Steg have worked together a lot, um, just kind of crafting things. And he's got some in his back burner he'll maybe use for other projects, and I've got bits and bobs. So it just became a kind of labour of going up with the Greg's coffee, taking a few hours in between picking my kids up, doing the work, listening to the cuts, going back and forth. So there was a lot of hybrid stuff, but a lot of just being in Steg's space. Then I recorded most of the vocals in my own studio, and then Steg would like mix those and stuff. But in general, sometimes it was just magic on the day, and we would just go in and make something. But honestly, the joy of just working in that space and in Steg's space and in his kind of safe hands, he's a really interesting and like dynamic producer with lots of little toys to play with, which is cool as well.
And was it a kind of playful process in a way of what
Yeah.
doing it together?
I loved it. Yeah. I mean, I was going through some stuff, man, and that's coming out in the album. So there was a couple of times I kind of ghosted everyone for a while in the process of making it. Um, but like in general, when I was with Steg, it was work,
Yeah.
but the work was getting done and we're having a laugh, you know, and we got on well. So yeah, I mean, we're both at that stage where we know how not to collaborate with someone, I think. And also we're okay with just saying, here, this isn't working for me. Are we cool if we do that? And not feeling some immense pressure or stress to or preciousness. Because like as you could probably hear from the album, there's a lot of stuff that I've often avoided
Hmm.
sonically, right? Because, you know, I'm a serious songwriter and blah, blah. Well, I go home and listen to Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish as well, right? So it's like, yeah, I've got this like serious folk sound and this like really dark hip hop sound. But actually, sometimes Steg would just steer me. I'd be like, I just want to say, I just want to say I love you, but how can I say that in this way? And he'd be like, just say that.
Yeah.
Why are you making it so hard for yourself? So we had some really cool moments where Stig would just like pull me back in and just be like, it's okay to say the thing or use a cliche or do that because that's what we're making. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was great fun. I learned a lot working with him and yeah, it was great.
And there are other collaborations on the album as well. You've worked with some other songwriters. Can you talk a bit about those?
Yeah, so there's a few songwriters on there. So the first collaboration is with Catherine Rudy. That song's called Patterns in the Shadows. It's a song kind of loosely based on the concept of dementia and like losing your mind. Doesn't sound like that in the album. We started writing it a long time ago. This idea of what you don't know about people. Catherine's a very conceptual songwriter, beautiful pop songwriter, but she writes really kind of whimsical but very kind of sharp and witty music that's just got this gorgeous folk edge because she's got a Gaelic kind of singing voice. So working with her is always great, and she focuses on harmonies. So we took that template that we started years ago, and then we actually had a kind of live version that we were playing around with, but we'd never settled on anything. And for me, it just felt right for this because it's kind of like a wee turning point in the album in my head. So Catherine Moody, a fantastic songwriter that everyone should go and listen to. She's now got a new project called So So Sad,
Right.
which is her and her partner Chris writing, as the title suggests, really sad songs. Um, and then I worked with the amazing Stuart Kidd, who's a good friend of mine. We're in a band together called the Pearl Fishers, which is a joy to be in, which is all about singing and harmony. And he and I got together. I had written quite a lot of the song Nostalgia, but Stu really helped me like just develop a middle eight and move kind of through the key and stuff. So we had a great collaboration doing that. And then I worked with the fantastic Johnny Slater, who's a good friend of mine. And we wrote Take It to the Radio together at a songwriting retreat, which I run, hey, called Song Seeds. So that was really great. We had a brief that was just like, write a song that you can take to the radio. And I was like, let's just call it Take It to the Radio. That song's actually about a workmate of Johnny's that he used to not get on with,
Right.
but it doesn't sound like that.
No, it
So, I
doesn't.
mean, and that's what I love about songwriting is that you can come with these pop songs, and underneath these songs is just so many nuanced meanings happening. I love it.
We will hear that song after we finish talking. So you've set that up brilliantly. And
Cool.
Johnny's got his own work out just now as well. I played his latest single on the show either last week or a couple of weeks before. He is a fantastic songwriter too.
Just one of those artists. He's so versatile and he's so experienced, and he has a real. It's hard to place him, but everyone always uses the term cinematic for Johnny's work. But I think that is a good term because he's got a real. He's really rooted in old school, almost theatrical songwriting, but it just gives everything so much air and space. And yeah, he's just a beautiful writer and a beautiful person. So that's great.
And I think you're absolutely right. Often the best songs, particularly pop songs, they grab you with a hook and with the melody and stuff, and then you start to really listen and you think, oh, there's something much more going on here. And I think that's what's happening on your album, definitely.
Yeah, and I'm kind of cool with that. I was really nervous about putting a pop album out because I was like, oh, your people won't get like they won't get what's going on underneath. But I think like the fun is in understanding the songs. I've actually got a wee zine that I made
Hmm.
that is not available yet, but will be available. That is a kind of magazine that I've made, and it's beautiful, and it's got like behind the song kind of meaning and stuff and all the lyrics and stuff in it, which will be part of the kind of output for the album. But I kind of like that, that and I've been fooled by pop songs so many times as well. So it's nice to know. I always think if we're ignoring pop music, we're ignoring the now. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
very lucky to work with a lot of much younger people than me at UWS who are kind of keep me interested in the current and have really excellent kind of contextual understandings of these pop stars that we would just think are throwaway bubblegum pop stars, but they have these backstories and these agendas and they're activists and they're this and they're that. And it's so cool, It's like, yeah. So, yeah, I enjoy that.
I was going to ask you actually, because for folk who don't know, you're also an academic and lecturer at University West of Scotland. And if working with younger musicians and people who are looking to kind of break into the area has affected you as a songwriter, but it sounds like it has. It sounds like it's kept you kind of on your toes, if you like.
I think, yeah, it really does. Listen, these young people that have the privilege to lecture, some of them, you get them into a room, you set them a task, the music they're coming back with I mean, they're all excellent instrumentalists, but they are not afraid to be the sound of now, and they embrace it and they enjoy it. And they just make great music, and there's so much talent out there. And I'm happy to like obviously some of my students will maybe do some backing vocals. I'm happy to support, some of my students have maybe come up here and they've maybe recorded something or I've mixed it for them or whatever. And like that kind of being attached to that youth culture that's kind of going to be the next wave of Scottish music
Yeah.
that's a gift to just be around that, and not be stuck in a bubble. Because I'll never not love Joni Mitchell and Led Zeppelin, and I'll never not love that stuff, Carole King, and oh my God, and Skunk and Nancy and all the stuff I
Yeah.
love. But I'll also like happily enjoy listening to, Youngblood or whatever else is happening now, and and hear it from their perspective and what it means to them. It's a joy.
So you said something earlier which was really interesting, in that you wanted to write this almost as a kind of self-help book that you might have at the side of the bed to kind of help you get through things, that kind of thing. But then the songs got different layers and different kind of depth towards them. So how did that happen? How did the whole kind of process of developing these songs go?
That's a great question. I started with a kind of aesthetic vibe, but the self-help thing, I was really kind of lucky in lockdown to have a bit of a kind of, I guess, a gatekeeper-ish role where I was running songwriting groups online, and they were for free, and it was just so that my friends and stuff could come along. So I kind of started making some music then, but also through that, I'm going to try and give you the abridged version of this long story, right? But also through that, I became, no offense to anyone I was working with, but a kind of agony aunt kind of vessel at points. And what I realized was that with great power came great emotional responsibility, right? And I think there was probably a point where I started to feel like what would be really good for me would be to stop looking inward and maybe give some outward advice. Right. And I had, through lockdown, we fell out with some people. There was difference of opinions. Everyone was online arguing about this, that, and the next thing. So that first song, After the Fog Air, which I wrote,
Mhm.
which is the title track, that is actually about all that stuff. So there's like a couple of lines in it which like the last time we spoke, you were mumbling something about chemicals in the walls at home, right? So it's all about like this kind of the othering of your friends and how like we lost contact and we've lost connection. So I knew that that was always going to be the kind of opening title track, um, and that I wanted it to feel like it was about that. But then as we move through the album, the shift changes from me talking about you
Mhm.
to actually me realizing that you could probably help me, because there's a lot of like grandeur that comes from assuming you know everything, and we all do it at points. So you'll hear like the music kind of shift as well from a much more kind of quite bold pop sound to something that feels a little bit more emotional and kind of guitar based and a bit more songwriter based. And it's meant to be that kind of shift in understanding. And that kind of closes with the last song. So the first song is like after the fog air, it's all these metaphors and blah blah blah. The last song is called Smart Words, which is all about like actually I don't need to be grandstanding here. I just need help. Right. And so and the last song's got very little in way of metaphor and that kind of thing in it, because it's just meant to signify all of that as a show, and this is where we're really at.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a weird, arduous kind of journey through that. So I guess the process comes from starting to understand what the album is. A
Mhm.
lot of songs came off it that were, again, I had this big, really important song about climate change, which came off it. I'll use it somewhere else, but it's not on there, and other things. And it just started to become something that I thought was going to be so outwards, but was actually so insular in the end. Because everything's about me. Basically, I'm just selfish like
But
that.
it is so interesting to hear that you went through that process of almost turning around the focus as you were going through making the album. We should let people know the album is out and available now, isn't it?
Yeah, so the album's coming out in various stages. So we have an actual vinyl, which is super exciting, which you can buy, called After the Fog.
For the
There it
people on video, I have a copy here. I'm
is.
delighted to
That
see it.
beautiful. That photo's by a guy called Stephen Dewar, fantastic photographer. And you can also go to Bandcamp and buy it. We made a conscious effort not to put it out on Spotify right away,
Mhm.
because for anyone that wonders how much money musicians make, it's none. But I like to break even, so whatever it costs me to make an album, I try to put that back out and hope if I can just, and being burst with that, then I'm happy. So we didn't put it out on Spotify right away because no offense, world, but that's free music basically. But it is now. If you're watching this, it should now be out on Spotify, so you can go and enjoy it there for nothing, or you can go and support local artists by going to Bandcamp and buying the digital copy for £10. So that is out.
And we haven't spoken about playing live, and I know you love to play live. Is there any plans? Are there any plans to do it?
Oh yeah, do you know, Ali, you're so right about that. I love to play live. I just love singing. I love singing and I love talking to the audience and having fun. So yes, this is an interesting album because you'll hear it's got a lot of pop sounds. But we're doing like a full band tour, which will be like a mix of probably Steg still on the decks, myself with guitar, some keys, some clarinet, some backing vocals. Um, and we're going to do actually going to do a rural tour. So we'll be starting in Glasgow, and then in 2026 we're going to go around rural Scotland, and then finish in Edinburgh. So we should be kind of touring at the first half of 26, basically.
So when that's all confirmed, let me know and I'll let the listeners know.
Oh, that's great. That would be lovely. Thank you so much. The only reason I've not confirmed it yet is because I need to finish writing my PhD. Then I can plan a tour.
Yeah, everything has got its stage to come. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's always a pleasure and it's great to catch up.
Thank you for being so supportive and listening to the album, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, and this is Becci Wallace and Steg G, and take it to the radio.